Okay, we seem to be ready to go. As far as I can tell anyway. So, good evening everyone, welcome back. This is still the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles on Nintendo Switch. The first game, Great Ace Attorney Adventures. This is part 8, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, it is. And we're still on the 4th episode. I think we're getting close to the end on this one. Should get started on episode 5, the last episode, tonight. I think there's at least 2 streams after this one left still to finish the game. That's what I'm expecting anyway. Let's continue. So that was right after saving last night. Okay, so that revelation was that the body of the victim had been moved from to across the street so that it would be on a different Bobby's beat. Quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Yeah, it's not just the body, yeah, it's in the entire crime scene in this case. Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here. Principally, that the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume, is the only person who could possibly have committed this crime. Oh, come on! You want me to spell it out for you? No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's attack. In the victim's back, yeah, sorry. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Van Zieks, is this true? He's not about to tell you. Very well. Name the person if you will, and if further investigation is warranted, the prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. But it has to be the juror, right? Could I? The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again, my assistant made the same request earlier, in order to finally reveal the truth about this case. It's imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garideb. Me? Oh dearie me. Idioty! It's a juror, you can't. There's nothing that says that we can't. That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garideb, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garideb. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened the window that looks out over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open top-hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. Is that what he said? I skipped a little bit too fast. Yeah, okay. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garideb. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before? I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? Yeah, that would be a bit too much, probably. And anyway, the man over there and all that regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes. No, I have no recollection of saying that at all, number 4. Ah, okay. Oh? Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. He's not such a bad guy after all. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out. But that's just a common or garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? Thank you for the follow, Fragilitis. What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying, please, Mrs. Garideb? Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. So yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you are going to insist on this being my fault. How can I prove that this is where the knife came from? The only piece of evidence that is connected to the knife is the tip being missing. There's a tiny shard of the tip that is missing. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife if that's what you think. Come along now, chop chop. Do your worst. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. Oh. He's pretty cooperative at the moment. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zieks. I'm going to have to testify? Maybe he really is for justice after all. He's not such a crook or something. And maybe the death that are attributed to him, being the Reaper of the Bailey or something, maybe that's not at all justified. I don't know. Juror number 4, as I'm sure you will appreciate having observed it with your own eyes today. Witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truth being unearthed. Truth of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware. Oh, dearie me. So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garinep. And mark my words, in this court of law today we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lords. My lord? Oh, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here, in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garideb. And I'm a juror and such like. It sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid or what anymore. The court has decided your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam? Yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh, dearie me. Chin up, Joni. Nothing to worry about now. Hey, why is he taking the stand? Oh, I didn't know you were here, John. John and Joan? Wasn't only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? Rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you? But what about your knee, dear? Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. Oh, John. I presume you are Mr. John Garideb? Yes, sir. Former 2nd Lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers, sir. Seen my fair share of action, and now living the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life? Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? That's not what I would call the quiet life, indeed. Ah, well, yes, quite. I can't imagine him not talking like Carter in Family Guy. I'm binging Family Guy at the moment, so that's the kind of voice I've decided to give him. I believe this may represent the first in the proud history of the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. Yes, on the day you're referring to. The wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. Knocked the candlestick over and set fire to the carpets. Soon had it out though, and got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd notice if one or two went missing, I'm afraid. He's not denying the possibility, at least. If that bally thing in the victim's back really was one of ours, you'll have a job proving it, I think. Indeed. It sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your household that evening. Although an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment. A gnat's whisker? I know what a whisker is, but a gnat's? Gnats? Not sure. Are we still talking about marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. I may have to press everything. In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to affirm anything more than they have testified already. This may be a dead end. But I want to cross-examine all the same. Well, yeah, Van Zieks may be right, but whatever the chance is, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, I'm afraid so. We may be getting close to the truth, at the very least. We're close. Very close. Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now, but I do recall the reason. The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garideb. A rather passionate note, in fact. But Mrs. Garideb found the note, discovering her husband's little secret. And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face for it, too. What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth. I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency not to drag it all up. And besides, half of it was wide of the mark anyway. I knew she would say that. I had trouble with remembering her catchphrase, but at the last second I was like, yeah, that's what she's gonna say. A likely story. These waters run very deep. And what transpired next after these multiple blows to the face? Knocked the candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. Soon had it out though and got the window open. Okay, tell us more about that. And the fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it? The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine really. Just so happens there was some bath water around that evening, so I sloshed that about to put it out. A most precarious situation you put yourself in. Ours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street, where the water main isn't connected yet. Have to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see. The lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night. Although, that little mustached Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe. Oh? Is that irrelevant in any way? The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he received a stipend for his studies. Stipend? 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 Think. Okay, I know what it means. It's just that I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Stipend. Ah, okay. Stipend. Alright. He receives a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off. Have you actually seen the state of the man? I believe he uses all of his income to buy books. Well, anyway, the point is, I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough. Okay. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Even though the room was on fire. As far as I was concerned at the time... It was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of a Susato takedown, Mr. Naruhodo. How did she know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items that you threw at your husband that day? She's not likely to say so. In all honesty, I don't recall. I don't know if you're all that honest. But I feel I must point out that I am no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel and a sponge, a napkin, not te kototo. Chotto! Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garideb. Hey, don't shoot! Sorry, I beg your pardon. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just that the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, and the fire poker, I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She landed the direct hit with everybody. Ah! Good grief, woman, we're not at home now. This is a court of law. Oh, dear me. Ever so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with the teapot in here? It's a bottomless teapot, too. I want that teapot. Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this, then. How do you suppose that happened, Your pipe, sir? Yeah, it's broken. It's been mended, apparently. Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles she did, yes. And when I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge do that sort of damage. Is it possible? Even remotely possible that the bit of the knife that is missing is in the pipe? Can we submit it as evidence? I see your pipe was broken. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid, like a knife. Anyway, I've managed to bandage the thing up for now. You are one to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? I wonder what we should make of this account. It's significant, I think. No, yeah, the one at the bottom is insignificant. It could be important. I'd like the pipe be added as evidence. The defense believes Mr. Garideb's remarks just now to be of great significance. This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. That's not what I wanted. I wanted the pipe to be entered as evidence so I could have a closer look at it. Indeed, common sense, one might say. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Ah, yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's what I want. Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me, there you go again, trying to ingratiate yourself with a young lady. Very well, the court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. The pipe has been entered into the court record. Let me at it. I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Mr. Naruhodo. No, that was perfect. You did well. No, not that. There's a small nick out of the bowl here. Look, it appears to have been made relatively recently. I see how there are little scrapes and dents all over it. It's clearly a well-loved pipe. Hi, Summerfish. How are you today? Yes, you're right. It seems to me recently that being well-loved goes hand in hand with getting some battle scars. This particular nick is catching my eye though, because it's clearly new. The missing part of the knife. I knew it! There it is. Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. Yes, I saw it. Something stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. Ooh, what's this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade. Surely, it couldn't be. The fragment of metal has been entered into the court record. A small piece of metal looks like it might be the tip of a knife blade. It was stuck inside the bowl of Mr. Garadev's pipe. Alright, just for the sake of completion, let's have a look at that tape there. It looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? But for some reason, it feels slightly ominous to me, like it's trying to shout out a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garadev's dressing gown. I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garadev, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this. Either that, or he can't afford to replace it. Yeah, he's not that rich. Looks... Yeah, okay, never mind. No, that's the same thing as before. Okay, let me skip through it. Okay, let's maybe examine it in more detail. Okay, I'd say this is where it would have been broken. This is the tiny piece of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Garadev's pipe. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? I don't really know. There's just something niggling me, but I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Come on! Perhaps in that case, it would be wise to examine some of the other pieces of evidence again. Yeah. Maybe I have to, actually. Maybe the game will not acknowledge that we've discovered the connection until we've actually went and looked at both. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo. Just at the tip, a small piece of the blade appears to be missing. Wait, part of it's missing? I could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. You remember this? Ah, that's the tiny fragment of metal that we found inside Mr. Garadev's pipe. Yes, and just maybe... Oh my, it's a perfect fit! Somehow, I just knew it. It's not been updated, though. No, actually. The tip of which has broken off as once and was found inside Mr. Garadev's pipe bowl. Okay. They didn't have the little jingle play out that says that the piece of evidence has been updated, but it has been. So I was just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, it's fine. Thanks to Susato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully. I just did. So no need for that anymore. Well, thank you for that rebuttal, Mr. Garadev. Now if we could return to the crux of the matter, what can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Well, I think I'm good to go to present it now. Or on this one, on the last statement. Well, either this or the piece. Yeah, I think you can probably show one or the other, and it wouldn't matter. Okay, there we go. Mr. Garadev, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. You can't? You used to call me Dead-Eyed Deb back in the regiment, of course. But that was some time ago now. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does. Dearie me, it's rather wearing being asked about every other letter and every other word. You mustn't be very dizzy. Dizzy? Does he? What is that? A tiny scrap of metal? Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And what may appear at first to be just a tiny scrap is in fact a crucial piece of evidence. Okay, interesting. And where did the defense come by this evidence? In the pipe. It was lodged in the chamber of Mr. Garredup's pipe. My pipe, you say? By Jove, I wonder how that got there. And what precisely does this fragment of metal signify, Counsel? Are you suggesting that it is in some way related to the matter of the stabbing on Briar Road? I am. What? When put together with another piece of evidence already in the court record, I believe this tiny fragment of metal will unravel the whole truth of this case, my lord. Look at his back, he's burned. Even the back of his, what is it? How do you call that in English? A bathrobe or something? This is... I'm not sure. But anyway, it's burned. You appear rather confident in that extraordinary statement, Counsel. Very well then, present the pertinent evidence to the court. What evidence, when paired with this fragment of metal, allegedly reveals the truth of this entire case? This is the knife that was found in the victim's back. If you look closely, you will see that there is a small piece at the tip of the blade that is missing. A common issue with the inferior blade sold at unsavory street markets. Criminals who use them regularly leave the tips lodged in their victims' bones. And what of this particular knife? No doubt its tip has suffered a similar fate, now languishing somewhere near the spine of the victim. No! We have the tip right here. No, that's not the case. The tip of this particular knife's blade is the very fragment of metal we discovered in the chamber of Mr. Garredup's pipe. Arrgh! Good grief, Lord Van Zeeks! I don't believe it. The knife from the crime scene and this fragment of metal are a perfect match. Good golly gosh! Hordar, Hordar, Hordar! Is this some sort of Eastern sorcery? This is no magic, my lord. This is a miracle. A miracle? So Van Zeeks has figured it out, has he? Counsel, explain this extraordinary coincidence at once. Yes, my lord. The crucial point we have to ask ourselves here is when did the fragment of metal find its way inside Mr. Garredup's pipe? Something that was clarified for us in the most recent witness testimony. At this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Yeah, I started reading it as a question, but yeah, that's because there's no subject at the start of the sentence. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles. She did, yes. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Oh, dearie me. During the argument between these two that occurred just as the victim was on the pavement below Mrs. Garredup flung this knife at her husband. However, the knife missed Mr. Garredup and stepped striking the pipe in his hand at the time, which caused the tip to break off, of course. Good lord! Yes, and that is when the tiny tip of the blade found its way inside Mr. Garredup's pipe. The chances of that are 1,000,000 to 1, but the fact remains that the knife was found in the back of the victim, the tip in your pipe, and the pieces fit, they match, so doesn't matter what the chances were. The fact remains. And yet, there's no other credible explanation for how the tip of the blade ended up in your pipe. Then, after losing its tip, the knife ricocheted off the pipe and flew out of the open window. In short, this knife, which fell from the window of the Garredup's house, is the very same knife that struck the victim in the middle of the back on the street below. Oh gosh, oh dear, oh no! I didn't notice before that she was standing on a box. What, idioty? What do you want? A full-bodied theory, I'll give you that. A complex bouquet of seemingly trivial points plausibly arranged to create an almost passable vintage. Allow me to toast my learned friend's characteristically Nipponese approach to bottling his argument. What, you're gonna be... Sorry? Yeah. But after all, it is just a theory. The bottle, I fear, is corked. Because, you see... it's spoiled by an insurmountable inconsistency. What inconsistency? Insurmountable? What? Lord Van Zeeks, explain yourself. What is this inconsistency you claim to have identified? An inconsistency of the simplest nature, my lord. The victim was found with the knife planted in the middle of her back, yes? Well, I already theorized yesterday that she bent over to pick up the book, and that's when, with her back turned upwards, as it were, with the force of gravity, the knife went to lodge itself in her back. And that actually may be what saved her life. Because the force of gravity itself may not have been strong enough to plunge the knife as deep as it could have gone. Yes, in her... Ah! That's right, you silly little man. Now, Joe, an old thing, what are you getting so excited about? That doesn't change where the knife came from. Let us consider the basic facts of the case once more. The victim was walking along the pavement before being stabbed in the back and falling to the ground. No, we have no proof that she was walking when she was, In fact, it would be pretty improbable, well, the likelihood of her being stabbed in the back by the knife falling to the ground, if she was in movement at that moment, is pretty low. So I think it makes a lot more sense if she stopped in her tracks to pick up the book and then the knife fell into her back. If the knife that struck her had fallen from above, there is no possible way it could have planted itself in the victim's back. Yeah, but come on, yeah, I know what happened. Don't be phased out. Unfazed, is what I should say. Sorry, my poor English. Order! Quite right, you see, that's exactly right. If the knife had fallen on her from above, it would have struck her on the top of her head. Well, come on! Let me at it! He's lost for words. Look, I knew it. I never liked this theory in the first place. I don't know, though, what really did happen. It would appear the defense has made a rather a spectacular blunder. If a theory has even one inconsistency, it cannot stand. Your theory, my learned friend, is history. No, it isn't. Let me explain. If I could just explain. We were so close. I could see the truth. I was so sure we were on the right track, but now the way has been blocked completely by just one simple inconsistency. Or in other words, we simply need to eliminate that one inconsistency and the theory will stand. Mr. Sato? You mustn't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. You were just caught off guard, that's all, and your mind went blank. But if the path you were on is indeed correct, then a way would present itself. The key to this is in the court record, I'm sure. All the information you need is there. It seems you have nothing to say, my Nipponese friend. Well, your silence speaks volumes. A tacit acceptance that your theory is fatally flawed. Oh yeah, it means that I need to sharpen my mind and dig deeper for the truth. Yeah, the text scrolls on its own here. It's a test. What did he say before? This inconsistency doesn't mean I was on the wrong track. Yeah. Yes. If the knife fell on the victim from above, there is no way that it could have hit her in the middle of her back. Under normal circumstances, that is. What are you implying? Counsel? There is a piece of evidence in the court record that can explain this inconsistency, the book. That can explain how the knife that fell from above could have pierced the victim's back. We already have the answer. Goodness. Utter madness. Surely this must be the last time. Counsel, present the evidence of which you speak. This is the last inconsistency, the final piece in the puzzle. If I can successfully make sense of this, the truth will be laid bare at last. The evidence that explains how the falling knife became lodged in the victim's back is... the book. She bent over to pick it up. This, the fourth book found at the scene. This is the final piece of evidence the defense will present. The burnt book? Is that not Mr. Garadeb's book? Yes, and to understand its significance, we have to consider how it came to be at the scene in the first place. This photographic print clearly shows the book in question, and the victim holding it in her hand. But as we all now know, it was the police constable that put the book between her fingers like that. That's not what he said. He said it was already in between her fingers like that. Quite so, as part of his wholesale transplanting of the crime scene to the opposite side of the road. That's true, however, as part of his testimony, Constable Beats made an extremely enlightening statement on that point. He put it in her hand because that's how he found it in the first place. That's because that's how I found it. There we go. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. In other words, the victim had already picked the book up of her own volition. And clearly that must have been before she suffered the knife wound. Well, I should say so. After being attacked with a knife, I don't imagine she'd have been doing much of anything. So the question becomes, why did the victim have that book in her hand? Because she had just been picking it up. By jingo, I think I'm beginning to see what may have happened now. Oh, dearie me. He too. More than likely. We know that the book fell from the top floor of the Garadeb household onto the pavement below at precisely the moment that the victim was walking past. Yes, at exactly that moment, the young woman was walking along the street in a light fog, when all of a sudden, a book fell right in front of her. The book I threw? Yes, Mrs. Garadeb, and what do you think the woman did? What would you do if you were walking along and suddenly a book landed in front of you on the pavement? Well, I really can't imagine it, but I suppose she might have reached down and picked the book up. Yes, that is exactly what the woman in fact did. She picked up the book. Oh, heavens! And when the woman reached down to pick the fallen book up, what position would her back have been in? That's right, facing the sky, completely and utterly defenseless. Then, in the very next moment, while the woman was still bent over picking up the book, just after it would have found its way in her hand, actually, otherwise it wouldn't have been in her hand, the next object fell from the room above, the jackknife straight into the middle of her back. And at that same time, walking by chance directly behind Miss Green, was the defendant, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Well, I never! It appeared to Mr. Natsume that the woman simply collapsed on the floor in the dark and the fog. He didn't see the knife falling on her from above. And from the other direction, the constable and his wife saw no one but the victim and her apparent attacker. So there never was a real culprit to run from the scene in the first place. We've done it! No, this was nothing more than a series of unlikely events that culminated in an unfortunate accident. And that is the real truth behind this case. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb, the very first time you showed me that knife, I had my suspicions. I wondered if perhaps it might have been something like that. There, old bean. Poor Mrs. Garadeb. Of course, I never meant for anything of the sort to happen, but it was all my fault, wasn't it? I take full responsibility. I let my anger get the better of me. I threw that book. And I threw the knife as well. John, dear, it's alright. I know. I'm ever so sorry. Truly. I'm sorry! Oh, my poor knee! Lord Van Zeeks, what news of Mrs. Garrideb? She's been taken to the infirmary. It would appear that today's events have left her in an especially flustered state. However, I believe she will recover in due course. There is no cause for concern. Yes, unbeknownst to themselves, they caused what could easily have been a terrible tragedy. They shall have to prepare themselves for the consequences of their actions. There is some good news, however, my lord. I have just had word from the hospital where the victim is being treated. Her condition is improving steadily and the doctor believes she will regain consciousness soon. It's strange. We've been talking about the victim all this time, but we've never once met her. How wonderful! The woman is out of danger, it seems. Yes, that is good news. So, Mr. Soseki Natsume. We haven't seen him in a while, actually. Yes. On behalf of my fellow countrymen, I would like to take this opportunity to beg your pardon, sir. You came from your distant eastern homeland to study our great British culture, and have been repaid with immeasurable unkindness. Please accept our heartfelt apologies. Heartfelt apologies. No, it is me who should be begging your pardon, because you fled the scene without helping the lady. That was unbecoming, sir. Oh no, Mr. Natsume. That evening, when the young woman just collapsed on the pavement before my eyes, I jumped to the wrong conclusion again, in my confusion. What conclusion, sir? I was sure that the woman was dead. Yes, Constable Beat said the same thing, didn't he? He thought she had been killed too. I suppose she must have looked completely lifeless. It's been about a year since I arrived in Great Britain now, but I still can't get used to life here. I can't relax. I'm sure there are evil spirits lurking in the fog. Like they're haunting me. Poor Soseki-san. His imagination really has got the better of him. Yes, poor man. So when it happened, I thought the young woman had been taken by the fog spirits. I should never have dropped my books like that and run away. I should have called for help, for a doctor, for the police. Instead, I've managed to create a rift in the relationship of trust between our two empires. And for that, I am truly sorry. One could indeed say that some sort of mischievous spirit has been at work here, I think. One that created a chain of unfortunate mishaps. We were befooled by the spirit and led to false conclusions. But thanks to Lord Van Zeeks and our young lawyer here from the east, that chain has now been broken and the spirit exorcised. I heartily commend you both. Oh. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, yes, my lord. In concluding this trial, I must ask one last time for your decisions regarding the defendant's culpability. Are you ready to present your findings to the court? As the foreman of this jury, I can assure you we've reached a fair and just conclusion. I do declare the truth can be extremely cruel at times. Well, I didn't suspect the woman next to me, that's for sure. He's substituting for her. Sitting in for the old bean whilst she's out of action. You know, but I know what our decision would be. Does this mean I'll finally be able to get out of here and start work? Well, it's about time. If work gets distributed at the start of the day, I think it's probably too late. Sorry. I say I'll have a corker of a story to tell the grandchildren when I get home, won't I? Very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby demand your final decisions. Mr. Foreman. Very well, Mr. Soseki Natsume, I hereby pronounce you not guilty. And finally, Mr. Natsume. Oh, yes, Lord Sir. You are now a free man once more. It is my hope that you will continue to further your education in British culture, and may you never again be brought before me. Oh, yes, sir, of course. On my life, I swear I'll never set foot in a courtroom again. I'm transported to tears. Thank you, counsels. Court is adjourned. 20th February, 3:17 p.m. The Old Bailey, defendant, antechamber. Oh, locum! Wait, you mean me? Of course! Is there another locum here? Is there even one? Compared to the original locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, your name has become rather short, hasn't it? What's wrong with using my actual name? Oh, at last, I'm free! I'm free! Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation! Heady, hearty happiness, hurrah! Oh, I am pleased, Mr. Natsume is delighted. Would it be so hard just to say that, then? Look whom you did it! You saved me from the brink! Well, what happened to the poor woman What happened to the poor woman was in no way your fault, after all. I'm just glad everyone can see that now. No, not that! Lovely, loyal locum lawyer! Yes? I mean, as I said before, I have just never got used to life here in Great Britain. Every time I look over my shoulder, I see foreigners. I see towering brick buildings. And from high up windows, I see them looking down on me, laughing. Look at that little hunchback. Oh dear, I'm sure it's all in your head, Mr. Natsume. But today, you locum lawyer gave my gloom the boot. You stood firm behind that baronial bench before all those babbling British. You battled to the bitter end, laying bare the baffling truth. And when I beheld the blinding fireworks among the beams of the Bailey's roof, I bellowed, "Behold, the best barrister ever born!" Well, that's very flattering, and we're very pleased for you. This has given me a wonderful anecdote to recount to my old friends back in Japan. An anecdote? Is that what's to become of all my hard work? There you are, my dear fellows. I apologize for keeping you waiting. I rose late this morning. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, what a pleasure to see you. I see I am here not a moment too soon. A disaster has been averted, I'm glad to say. Oh? The trial shall begin presently, Mr. Naruhodo, and I wish you the very best of luck. It's just finished. What? No, then my haste was in vain? Arg, it's you! Herr Locksholmes! Oh, have we met, sir? This is Mr. Natsume, the man you had arrested, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, I see. I failed to recognize you at first. Our previous encounters have taken place in the gloom, either of your bleak lodgings or that prison cell. Sorry. I simply couldn't place that curious face in the light. Charming! This is all your fault, Herr Locksholmes. You're the reason I had to go through this terrible ordeal. I'm going to give you a piece of my mind. My apologies, sir, but I assure you I have placed you now. You're the fellow who abandoned that poor young lady and ran off, are you not? Ah. Had she been taken to hospital more urgently, I feel perhaps she would have regained consciousness by now. Oh. But it was unavoidable, I'm sure. We are but human after all. Anyone would have been shaken by such an experience. Yeah. I do feel very badly about how I behaved. Well, never mind. Now then, what was it that you wanted to say to me, sir? Nothing. Priceless. Oh, I am sorry, really. But that was quite priceless, poor Soseki-san. Still, on the bright side, you've had an extremely entertaining experience without paying a penny. And it would seem you were not even found guilty. But there is no bright side. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Natsume? Even after this, I'm still cursed by the spirits and now by the Reaper. If he does happen to die, Lord Van Zeeks, I haven't forgotten, you know, what facing that man in court means. Even if you're found not guilty, you're still doomed. We'll be alright, Mr. Natsume. If the Reaper appears trying to make trouble, I will protect you. Aiya! Did you have to demonstrate on me? With a perfectly executed Susato takedown. Much as I like being turned on my head, a bit of warning might be nice next time, Miss Susato. So, Mr. Natsume, what do you intend to do now? You mentioned something about recounting your experiences to your friends back in Japan. Yes, I intend to return to my homeland soon. Oh. It has already been a year since I arrived here in Great Britain. I've visited universities, libraries, bookshops. I've been honored with the tutelage of professors. I've learned so much about the wealth of literature here and the city it has shaped. And I've come to realize that it is my calling to sail home and tell my fellow countrymen about it. That's very touching, Mr. Natsume. Or in perhaps less veiled terms, you wish to withdraw halfway around the world, escape the terror of the Reaper's curse. That's not it at all! The more I learn of literature, the more this strange feeling claws at my insides. I feel compelled to return to my roots and attempt to pen a work of my own. Oh, I see. A work of literature by Soseki-san. Could be an interesting read. And what about Miss Susato and yourself, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry, what about us? Will you return to Japan alongside your mustached compatriot? Why would we? A week has not yet passed since we arrived in London, and only now does it feel as though we have finally found our feet. And you are accommodated in the hotel at present, are you not? That's right, but we need to find lodgings before it bankrupts us. I've calculated we can only afford another 10 nights before our entire budget is exhausted. Well then, you can take my lodgings. Oh, the windowless room? But what it lacks in windows, it more than makes up for with a floor, a ceiling, and walls. Great. And of course, I'd be happy to leave behind the accursed evil spirit. Oh my, an evil spirit? Oh yes, it tries to suffocate you while you sleep. It's an infallible wake-up call. We'll think about it if that's alright. Perhaps I can offer a more welcome offer or something? Alternative? Would you consider taking lodgings with me? Really? Well, a vacancy has conveniently presented itself. Though it is up in the attic, I might add. Are you sure it isn't just a storage loft? I spoke with the landlady this very morning on the matter of price, and Iris is cleaning the room as we speak. You must come at once. I presume you have no luggage to speak of. Oh, this is simply wonderful. What an honor to be invited to taking lodgings in the great detective's office's attic. I'm too overcome for words. What was her name again in Sherlock? Miss... Or Miss... No, Mrs... I can't remember. So suggesting we look elsewhere is out then. And then it's settled. Iris will prepare a welcome dinner this evening. And you must come too, Mr. Natsume. I insist. I don't know what to say, but thank you. And yes. Wonderful. Then I'll go and complete the paperwork for your formal release, Mr. Natsume. It shan't take long. Somebody's happy. Locum, I knew that you wouldn't let me down. I'm truly delighted to have met you here in London. Likewise, Mr. Natsume. It's been a privilege meeting you too. It's a shame that we're going to have to say goodbye so soon. Well, I've come to realize that I belong in Japan. But Locum, we'll meet again one day. Yes, I'm sure. And hopefully by then, I'll be a successful lawyer. Hopefully by then, I'll be a successful author. Well, my dear fellow, our carriage appears to have arrived. Shall we go, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, Mr. Sholmes. I have little doubt Mr. Natsume will be released in time for dinner this evening. Sorry. And so, with Soseki-san's innocence successfully established, we rode with Mr. Sholmes to what was to become our new home. 221B Baker Street. So that's what it is then. The attic room. So this is to be our new office, yes. Our office? I rather like the sound of that. Me too, it's simply wonderful, isn't it? I hope you can see this, Kazuma. It's only a small step, but I'd like to think we're getting a little closer to your dream now. So, my dear fellows, do you like the place? Ah, Mr. Sholmes. Yes, thank you so much. It's a delightful room, Mr. Sholmes. I simply adore it. Good, I'm pleased to hear it. Iris and I are delighted to welcome you. I hope everyone's hungry. It's nearly time for dinner. We'll eat as soon as Mr. Natsume arrives. We have a lot to celebrate. Iris, you must let me help you. Alright then, Susie. You can be in charge of the salad. Splendid. So, Mr. Naruhodo, how does it feel to have your own office in the capital? It's very exciting, actually. I can't help wondering what adventures await us. Those were precisely my sentiments when I first established my office at these premises. Until I discovered the dark truth about the city of London, that is. Sorry? London is a glorious place, full of wonder, opportunity, prosperity, and mirth. But the brightest of lights casts the darkest of shadows. Shadows? What do you mean? Well, I believe you're well aware of the murkiness that lies behind London's facade already. So once again, Mr. Naruhodo. Welcome to London. Of course, at the time, I had no idea of the significance of those words Mr. Sholmes so casually spoke. But it wasn't long before my turn came to lift the facade and see the true depth of the murk that lay behind it. Fourth case closed. Let's get started on the next one. Landed in London. Awarded. The Adventure of the Unspeakable Story. Investigation Part 1. The Hound of the Baskervilles. A hound it was, but not such a hound as any mortal has ever seen. Its eyes glows with a smoldering glare, and no time to read.
ホームズの鋭い声が濃い霧の壁の向こうから聞こえてきた。私は霧のまとわりつく拳銃の撃鉄を起こして息を潜めて待った。永遠とも思える静寂、そしてその瞬間は突然訪れた。霧の中から見たこともない巨大な獣が私の目の前に躍り出たのだ。それは確かに犬だった。しかし明らかに尋常ではなかった。目はこうこうと燃え上がり、猛牛ほどもある体躯に獰猛な青白い炎をまとっている。血を這うような息遣いとうなり声、私はあまりの恐怖に震え上がった。見たまえワトソン、ホームズは魔獣を見据えて言い放った。こいつこそバスカビル家に代々語り継がれる伝説の魔剣なのだ。
Our first 2 months in London passed by in a flash. In that disconcerting courtroom experience we were first thrown into on the day we arrived in the country, and in Saseki-san's terrible ordeal that had followed closely behind, we had emerged victorious. However, there then came an abrupt end to our opportunities to appear in court, which was hardly surprising, of course, since I was nothing more than an amateur, an unknown student of law from a faraway land. So life in our little office was very quiet. That is, until it was shattered one day by that fateful telegram. Okay, this cutscene seems to be over. Naruhodo's legal consultancy. Knock, knock, knock. The Daruma that he brought in his luggage, it's on the shelf at the back. That morning I was woken by the unreserved knocking on the door by the telegram boy. But after it gone, Sasato-san's behavior became very obviously strange. Sasato-san? Yes! Is it time to leave for court already? Let me see, what case is it today? I don't think I'm scheduled to defend anyone at the moment, am I? Oh no, of course not. How silly of me. Is she trolling? Because she would have to know as well. No? But I think Iris said we shouldn't. She would make us breakfast this morning. So shall we go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite? Yes, Iris makes the most delicious breakfast food. She does, doesn't she? And once our bellies are full, we can leave for court in fighting fit form. Let me see. What case is it today? Here we go again. Onions. Fish tank? We were rather lucky to find that old aquarium left behind here. The prawns we put in there are doing rather well, and the anemones too. It's a wonderful invention, isn't it? The sea behind glass, inside your room. Another example of Great Britain's greatness. Having to clean it out and change the water isn't so great though, is it? Ah, this must be the telegram. Let's see. No, you mustn't look at that. Not under any circumstances. Alright, I won't. I'm sorry, Naruhodo-san, but you can be very mischievous at times. Then put the telegram away if you don't want people looking at it. It was a telegram for her? Do you know, I've never seen inside your room there, Sato-san. I've never even peeped inside. I should think so too. A young maiden's private chamber is a place of bittersweet secrets, you know? Whatever you say, young maiden. Daruma. Ah, the Daruma doll I brought with me from home, still with only one eye colored in. I said I'd color the other eye once I won my first court case here in Britain, but you have won, haven't you? Twice, in fact, because I feel as though I'm still lacking as a lawyer. I tell you what, why don't you color the other eye in once you think I'm a proper, fully fledged lawyer? If you insist. We've only been here in London for about 2 months, but my desk is starting to look a little messy already. You could tidy up once in a while. Susato-san, I always say, making a mess is a small sacrifice to pay for being able to further your studies. And time spent tidying up is time you can't devote to the same cause. And time spent on ridiculous arguments is time that could be better spent on some simple housework. She wins, but I'm supposed to be the lawyer here. So this is a tea set that Susato-san brought with her from Japan. Let's hope she hasn't noticed me slipping sugar and milk into my cup when she makes it. It's just so bitter. Tea is a drink to be enjoyed, Naruhodo-san. You really don't have to force yourself to drink it, you know? I don't like to see you screw up your face so. It's spring at last, and the weather is warmer now. But I love the smell of the fire and the steam rising from the kettle. Oh, would you like some tea, Naruhodo-san? Thank you, Susato-san, but I'm alright for now. With the green tea Susato-san makes me from time to time and Iris's unique herbal infusions, this place is paradise for a true tea lover. Green tea is such a wonderful accompaniment to British tea cakes, don't you think? What's a shovel doing here? That spade has been in here since we started renting the place. Oh, that's not a spade, Naruhodo-san. It's a shovel. No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade. No, spades are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a shovel. I don't want to dig a hole for myself, so let's leave it. Well, I think that's everything. Alright then. Check this out. It means a great deal to me, you know, that you cherish his armband so, and wear it each time you appear in court. Well, it's very important to me. It's what shows that I'm a lawyer. And whenever I wear it, I feel as though it gives me strength. Through Kazuma. I absolutely can't be without it, especially when I'm at a critical point in a trial. But just the other day, I noticed you wearing it when we went to visit that park. Sometimes I forget to take it off. Hold on a minute. Huh. I never noticed that until now. The lawyer's name is embroidered on the inside here. Look, Kazuma Asogi. This was his band, of course. He had his heart set on this study tour in Great Britain. I'm sure he would have found the truth he longed for here. But he lost his life before he even had the chance to see the place. I have such a strong sense of his hopes and dreams when I look at this armband, though. Ah, okay, it's the same thing. Yeah, I guess there's no tick when you've already obtained all the information on a piece of evidence like that. These are the scales of justice. They're a symbol of the defense, aren't they? Yes, that's right. The scales are a symbol of fairness to show that all are treated equally in the eyes of the law. And they're a warning to those who enter the courtroom without an impartial mind. But if they're the mark of the defense, it would be more auspicious if they were weighing more heavily on the not guilty side, I think. Very impartial, I'm sure. So what was it about? The telegram that was delivered this morning, I mean. Oh, a telegram? I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry, but you're not going to get away with that. Well, I didn't think I would. Actually, don't give it a moment's thought. It's nothing. Nothing interesting. Boring, in fact. It was just a boring old telegram. That's 3 times now that she's tried and failed to convince me it was nothing. I promise that I'll tell you about it at some point. Alright, I understand. I suppose Saseki-san will have arrived back in Japan by now, won't he? Yes, I should think so. He left immediately after that terrible ordeal. Which would mean he should have completed the voyage already or be just a few days away. A fortnight ago we had that very long telegram from him, do you remember? Complaining of seasickness. But by and large it seems the voyage has been going well. Is it possible that the telegram that arrived is to tell us that he died? Is something wrong, Naruhodo-san? I was just wondering what might have become of Saseki-san had he stayed in London, that's all. You mean, as regards Lord Van Zieks, the Reaper? Yes, I can't help wondering if seasickness would have paled into insignificance in that case. What is it they say? That no one who stands in the dock can be saved from the Reaper, right? Like the way that nightmarish trial ended on the very day we arrived in London. Even 2 months on, the cause of that dreadful fire is still a mystery. Yes, but at least Soseki-san is safely out of the country now. Presumably that means that the curse of the Reaper can only take effect within the confines of the city of London, perhaps. Even if that's the case, it's little comfort. I have a terrible sense of foreboding. If the legend of the Reaper is to be believed, it would mean he wields the sword of justice himself. Come to think of it, I wonder what he's been up to these past 2 months. Surely not wielding that sword against more acquitted defendants. No, I don't think so. Apparently Lord Van Zieks hasn't appeared in court once since our last encounter. Yes, since Soseki-san's trial, he's withdrawn from judicial service again, it seems. Really? Just like before, when he wasn't seen in court at all for several years. So it's just been me who's had to face him in his recent spate of trials, then. Just my luck. I wonder if luck doesn't come into it. Sorry? What was that? Oh, nothing. Never mind. Morning, Runo. Morning, Susie. I'm listening to him playing the violin. It's not exceptional. Iris? What is it, Runo? What is that terrible noise? It sounds like a cat being strangled. Ah, yes, you noticed that, did you? Hurley isn't in the best form this morning, it seems. Oh, hello? Ah, no, that's him. Hello. Hello, Mr. Sholmes. Good morning. A good morning to die, perhaps. Has something happened, Mr. Sholmes? You look miserable, and the way you were playing the violin before... My analytical mind is dead. Using is dead. The world is dead. Damn this blanched existence. Blanched? That's all it is, my dear fellow. Nothing of consequence. I'm afraid I don't understand. Well, Iris, isn't it time we ate? Some dry toast and insipid coffee for me. If it's not too much trouble. Hey. Oh, look, it's Wagahai. Wagahai? Good morning, boy. That must be some sort of tiny door for cats to use. But how did it get there? Well then, everyone, time for breakfast. Oh, wonderful. Let me help you, Iris. Would it indeed be a fine day to die? I knew something looked different. The heck? Something's missing from Mr. Sholmes' deck. Yeah, that machine that can analyze anything. What happened to it? Check this out. Could I ask for your opinion about this? You lure me to raise my languid head with the promise of some mental exaltation. Yet in my morbid depression, I am confronted with the most mundane of problems. Oh. My mind finds greater stimulation in the unforgiving monotony of the floor than your miserable offering. Always glad to help. Oh, my head weighs heavy on my shoulders. What happened to him? Hello, Iris. Mr. Natsume's cat seems to have settled into his new home then. Oh yes, and I've become very attached to little Waggy. It would appear his previous owner is completely forgotten to him. Cats are unfeeling creatures. Their mews are empty as the hearts of the muses. If Mr. Natsume had no intention of taking Waggy back to Japan, I wonder why you kept him in the first place. I expect he would have taken him if he could, but pets are strictly forbidden aboard steamships in our experience. And for good reason. Terrible things can happen if the rules of passage are not obeyed. Well, yeah. Well, I don't mind because Waggy is adorable. Yes, he really is. Oh, yes. Oh, what about the door? I don't remember seeing that tiny thing in the main door before. Where did that come from? Oh, you noticed? You are observant, Runo. Look, I used this. It's my latest invention. What is that? I call it the cat flapomat. Gosh, a machine for making doors just for cats? That's right, it can make a cat flap for a little furry friend like Waggy in seconds. And it can do it in any door at all, no matter what it's made of. It's very powerful, you see. Wouldn't it have been quicker just to make the cat flap rather than making a machine to make the cat flap? Well, yes, maybe, but now I can make cat flaps anywhere I like. Oh, I think it's wonderful. You must make one for us in the door of our office upstairs, Iris. She really knows how to come up with unconventional inventions, this girl. Hehehe. Looks like that huge metal chest is being used as a table for tea and coffee. It seems very sturdy with an equally sturdy lock. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't go around opening things. I always have to keep an eye on you, don't I? You're very mischievous. How did you come to that conclusion? The fire is burning comfortably in the grate again today. It's a very different feeling to a Japanese hibachi somehow. Oh, look at that photographic print of a lady displayed on the mantelpiece. Could it be... Yes, it must be. It's the woman. Oh, how exciting. Is that supposed to mean something to me? The woman? What was her name in the Sherlock TV show? Yeah, it's the one that Sherlock kind of has a thing for. These are all mementos of Mr. Sholmes' past cases, I think. If it'd been involved in my case, I wonder if the beefsteak from La Carnival would be on display here. A mystery shoe, a curious hammer, some mysterious dancing man, a bust of Napoleon. Ah, what an entrancing collection. It looks like an untidy assortment of junk to me, rather like what's on my own shelves. Well, you really ought to learn to keep your things in order, Mr. Naruhodo. No favoritism there at all. There was all sorts on these shelves. Chemistry apparatus, books, papers, and lots of things I've never seen before. It's all heaped up so high I can't help feeling that the whole lot is going to topple at any moment. Oh, it's such a charmingly untidy collection of paraphernalia, isn't it? Just looks messy to me, like my desk. But you, Mr. Naruhodo, must learn to tidy up after yourself. Okay. Same thing as before. Yeah, let me finish examining on the right side, because I think what's on the left side is what's gonna trigger the rest of the events. Come to think of it, I haven't seen Iris doing much writing recently, but there's paper already set up in the typewriter. Look, as if she's about to start. That reminds me, when I mentioned that Iris was in the process of writing a full-fledged novel, Mr. Natsume was most impressed. Ah yes, Mr. Natsume. That's what I'll be doing too once I'm back in Japan, he said through tightly clenched fists and teeth. That's a charming little white shelf, and full of charming little bottles too, but the contents of them are quite so charming, it seems. Science is the future, Mr. Naruhodo, you can't deny it. I'm saving my money so that I can buy some chemistry apparatus as well. Law, chemistry, takedown throws, what diverse skills you boast, Mr. Sato. As useful as they are, I'm not sure that my throwing skills are worthy of inclusion in that list. This is where Iris notes down ideas, isn't it? Let's see, what does it say today? Ah, the Boscombe Valley Mystery. Oh, how intriguing. It must be the title of Iris's latest work. Oh my, I wonder what fantastic tale waits us. Sato-san looks like an angel, but I bet she's dreaming of the most unsavory crime you could imagine. Iris's beautiful tea set is there on the table as usual. A cup of one of our special herbal blends always helps me to relax when I'm feeling the strain. The English pastime of tea has many similarities with our own tea ceremony customs, don't you think? It's the idea of hospitality behind it, that's the essence of tea. Okay. Look at Mr. Sholmes' desk, it's completely clear. Isn't that enormous machine usually on it? We can never hope to understand what goes on in the great detective's mind, Mr. Naruhodo. Why, next time we're invited, we may find this vacated the entire suite. That's scarily plausible, actually. Well, is that it then? seem to be very unhappy this morning, Mr. Sholmes. What's happened? It used to be the case that in my hands, this violin sung like the dawn chorus, its mellissonant tones would make flowers bloom. It would? But now, the muses are unamused with me. The goddesses of music have thrown me over. Whatever do you mean, Mr. Sholmes? For hours I have bowed, for days even. Through the night I have endeavored, to no avail. That sound, my tone, is lost. That brilliant, clear, unwavering tone. Gone forever, no more recitals of unbridled emotions. Well, you haven't been practicing much lately, have you, Hurley? Don't worry, I'm sure it will come back to you in time. Heed my words, Mr. Naruhodo. The goddesses of the arts are fickle. One day they bestow genius on a man. The next, they unmercifully withdraw it. Oh dear. Why is this happening to me? If they take the turn I have for the violin from me, what is left, for pity's sake? What is left? Deduction perhaps? Isn't that what you're known for? Hold on, I'm not feeling too hot right now. Alright. Mr. Sholmes, I don't like to pry, but your desk looks rather empty today. Ah, well done, Mr. Sato. Your observational skills do you credit. Oh no, Mr. Sholmes, they pale into insignificance when compared to yours. You'd struggle not to know this, wouldn't you? You mean Early's great analytoscope? That's at Windy Banks now. Sorry? It's at Windy Bank? No, Windy Banks, the pawn brokery. Pawn? What? You mean you've pawned that enormous machine of yours? It has some considerable value, you see, quite undeservingly. But isn't it a very important machine for your work? I do wish you had consulted us, if your situation had become so desperate. Should have gladly passed what little income I have to you. Dear madam, things are far from desperate. But the pawnbroker has your wonderful machine. How can it be anything but desperate? Making use of a pawnbrokery is quite ordinary here in London, I assure you. It is? It doesn't sound ordinary at all. It would seem that neither of you fully understand how pawnbroking works. Oh, what's to understand exactly? What did you mean when you said we didn't fully understand how pawnbroking works? To the people of London, pawnbrokeries are akin to banks. Banks? On Mondays, merchants relinquish their finest jackets and trappings to their pawnbroker of choice. With the money they receive in return, they are able to trade happily through the week. And then on Saturdays, they go recover their things using the money they've earned. I had no idea. This has been a fascinating lesson for us. Everyone does it, you see, especially people in inner what? In a what? In London, okay. And should they have money to spare, they would purchase another fine jacket. Not to wear, obviously, but to pawn. Should the need arise. Oh, how ingenious. So whenever we have something that's getting in the way, we leave it at Windy Banks, you see? Pawnbrokery can be thought of as an extremely secure vault. Who would have thought that even pawnbrokers are different here in Great Britain? Of course you have to watch early with it. Sometimes he pawns things he really shouldn't. Don't you, Early? What does it matter? The world is dead to me now. What was that? Wagahai? What was that about? What was that? Oh no! Wagahai is tangled up in your violin! I think he thinks it's a toy. No, what's he doing to it? Oh dear, Mr. Sholmes' precious violin. Why should I care? What? I shouldn't be surprised. If the cat is a more accomplished musician than I now. Mr. Sholmes really isn't poor spirits, isn't he? Well, anyway, I'll put it back where it lives, shall I, Early? Out of the cat's reach, if possible. Maybe we should assess the damage. So this is the violin, is it? It's the Stradivarius, one of the finest violins in the world, made by the renowned Italian luthier, Antonio Stradivari. Oh, I see. It doesn't really look like anything special to me. I happened upon it covered in dust, languishing in a pawn shop down a nondescript back alley. The broker had no idea of its value, so I was able to purchase it for a mere 55 shillings. How honorable of you. And until today, it has been my faithful companion in every great Paganini-inspired performance I have made. I ask you, is there reason to live in a world devoid of music, to tolerate this blanched existence? No, there is none. Mr. Sholmes. What, dear madam? What? My thoughts are preoccupied with fancies of release from this dull routine. Well, it's about the violin. It looks very different to normal, don't you think? Hmm? What do you mean, Mrs. Sato? Oh, Susie's right! Yes, the tone of the wood is completely different. And that's not all. I'm sure there was no crack here before. Wait, it's not even the right size, is it? What's this? I'm terribly sorry to have to tell you this, Mr. Sholmes, but that instrument isn't the violin at all. What, it's a contrabass or something? Then what? I believe it's an entirely different instrument called the viola. Ah, okay. What? What? And no wonder you couldn't play it. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, are you alright? You're right! You are quite right! This isn't my faithful Stradivarius. So what, pray, is this piece of stringed flotsam? Not your faithful performing partner, then. Ah, I see what must have happened. You do, Iris? This is just a simple mix-up. It sounds like Iris might be able to tell us exactly what happened if we ask her. What did you mean by a mix-up, Iris? Well, you see this violin? Sorry, this viola, or viola, I mean, was at Windybanks until last week. At the pawnbroker's? Not Mr. Sholmes' beloved musical partner? There is a proverb from the East with which you are no doubt familiar, my dear fellows. Always let a beloved child travel. Yes, indeed. So you sent your beloved violin to the pawnbrokers in the hope that it would experience personal growth? Oh, what a wonderful idea. Last week I pawned my great analytiscope in order to release my precious instrument, but it would appear Mr. Windibank mistakenly furnished me with this tawdry fiddle instead. And you didn't notice? But my ears cannot be deceived by the hollow timbre of this piece of timber. No, but your every sense was deceived by the fact that it just had strings. Phew, a fine state of affairs this is, and why I always say, Mr. Naruhodo, never trust a pawnbroker that will try to fiddle you every time. But earlier you told us that you could think of a pawnbrokery as an extremely secure vault. I'm tired. Come, Mr. Naruhodo, dilly-dallying will get you nowhere. Sorry? Crunching your toast with that vacant aspect, pressing your coffee so obtusely. Are you not a little embarrassed by your own conduct, considering the urgency with which we are faced? We must visit Mr. Windibank's brokery at once. That's right, isn't it, Mr. Sholmes? If you say so. Precisely, Mr. Sato, without a moment's delay. But I haven't finished my bacon and eggs. My dear fellow, sure you do not still intend to crunch your bacon with an increasingly vacant aspect, to press your egg even more obtusely. Alright, say no more, let's go then. Don't worry, Bruno, I'd be happy to eat it up for you again later. Oh, thank you, Iris. As it happens, I am rather curious to see what a British pawnbroker's looks like. Oh, we can get out on Baker Street. There's not much you can examine. It's already been 2 months since we started taking lodgings here above Mr. Sholmes' office. I still can't quite believe it. I never expected things would turn out like this. Oh, I know. To actually be sharing accommodation with the world's greatest detective. If I ever find myself before a court of law now, I will have not one regret. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'd be happy to defend you, of course. Look at all the different things in the window of the shop. And that's Windibank's, the pawnbrokery. It looks much smarter than a pawnbroker's in Japan, doesn't it? Yes, you're right. I find pawn shops at home rather inapproachable, personally. It reminds me of tearfully parting with my favorite fountain pen. I felt so miserable. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, Mr. Naruhodo. That's it looks like. Okay, move then. Do I see a violin anywhere? Oh my, there are all sorts of tools and contraptions in here that I've never laid eyes on before. Ah, Sato-san, and that spark of wonder in your eyes. You can't wait to scour the shelves, can you? I get the impression you enjoy places like these, like this. Oh yes, I don't know why, but seeing such a lot of things I don't understand is a real... A lot of things I don't understand is a real thrill for me. My dear fellows, let us not forget why we are here. Oh, Mr. Sholmes. We are calling on matters of business, not pleasure. And clearly Mr. Sholmes means business too, judging from the spark of fury in his eyes. Mr. Sholmes, sir, welcome back. Did you hear that brazen welcome? Well, yes, we are potential customers after all. We are disgruntled customers, Mr. Naruhodo, and it's time to inform Mr. Windybank of our hire. Of our ire. Come, the fight is afoot. The fight is afoot. Let me have a look around. What are you doing, my dear fellows? We are not here to browse for interesting curios. We have come to teach this broker a lesson. Oh, but there are just so many fascinating items. It looks as though we'll have to talk to Mr. Windybank first before you can explore in here, Mr. Sato. Sounds like it, right? If I try elsewhere, yeah. I get the tick on everything since I suppose... Yeah, it's always going to be that same answer from him. Mr. Windybank, about this. Let me see. I'll give you 2p for it. No, I don't want to pawn it. Naturally, you will recall this, which I retrieved from you some days ago. Yes. This second-rate fiddle is not my faithful instrument, Mr. Windybank. The color of the wood is different. It has holes in it. It's not even the same size. A wonderful summary of our observations, Mr. Sholmes. I'm so very sorry, sir. How utterly unforgivable of me. An inexcusable mistake for a pawnbroker. There is only one way to make amends. I shall have to take my own life. And you put happy music on it? That's horrible. What's this game's deal? I don't think that will be necessary, do you? If I may just say one thing before I pop off. Yes? It was you, sir, Mr. Sholmes, who took it upon himself to remove the item the other day, I believe. Sorry? As I recall, I entered the storeroom to fetch your violin when I heard, here it is. You did? And when I turned to controvert you, you had taken the viola and left, sir. However, there can be no doubt that the blame lies firmly at my own door for allowing you to leave. So I shall not grumble or grouse any longer. May this guilt die with me. No, stop, my dear fellow. The fault is mine. Phew. It would appear that the fight is over. I do humbly apologize, Mr. Windybank. Evidently, my questionable disposition precipitated this tragedy. Well, you wouldn't be Mr. Herlock Sholmes without that questionable disposition now, would you? Haha, I do believe you may be right, sir. It's either laugh or cry, I suppose. You are, it must be said, one of my more challenging customers. I needn't remind you of the peculiar collection of items you've brought through my door in the past. Oh, peculiar items? In the extreme, ma'am. For example, the unpublished manuscript of an eponymous work, the novels of Herlock Sholmes or some such. Oh my, a new full-fledged novel? And unpublished? A story I have yet to read, you mean? Forgive me, wait before you die, you must tell me more. I must know more, tell me everything. Wow, Sisalo-san is really fired up now. Is there really an unpublished story under this very roof? One day the gentleman here brought in an old metal chest, you see. I'm tired. I should like to entrust this to your care for a while, Mr. Windybank. For a chest like that, 1 shilling, sir. Not a farthing more. It houses something of very great value indeed. The latest manuscript recounting the adventures of one Mr. Herlock Sholmes. I beg your pardon? A manuscript? You wish to deposit a manuscript? Indeed I do, for I am confident it will be quite safe here. And that was that. As such, Mr. Sholmes' latest tale of otherworldly mystery lies dormant in my storeroom. Mr. Sholmes, is that really true? Do I sense that someone doesn't want to talk about this? I continue to pay your fee, do I not? Then kindly continue to store my belongings securely. Of course, sir, of course. They are safe and sound with me, I assure you, on my life. This is all very strange. More info, maybe? I wonder, could I ask you something? Ah, a gentleman from the east, I see. Yes, that sable suit. I suppose I could offer you 6 pence for it. Without wishing to offend, the tone is somewhat dull. Sorry? Aha, but for your splendid attire, ma'am, 5 guineas, no less. The colors are exquisite, the design exotic, Eastern artistry at its finest, may I say. Oh my, 5 guineas, you say? How interesting. Why do I feel as though I've suffered some sort of defeat here? Actually, I was hoping to ask you about your business. I've heard it said that pawnbrokeries are used rather like banks here in London. Yes, sir, indeed. Many of my customers utilize the establishment as you describe. I appraise their items and offer them a proportionate loan and 2 months of secure stowage. If in that time they repay the original sum to me plus the agreed interest, their items are happily returned. But what happens if they don't pay you the money? Then the items are offered for sale in my shop, as you can see on the shelves behind me. So you never sell items before the 2 months has passed then? That's right, ma'am, that's right. Which means some considerable responsibility rests on my shoulders. Should the customer's precious belongings be lost, the only recompense for me is to end it all. The very idea, Mr. Windybank, is an absurdity. One should never talk of one's demise so casually, says the man who was telling us all it was a good day to die only this morning. And let us not forget that I have already helped you take measures to ensure such a tragedy never occurs. Oh, what sort of measures? I engineered a simple device which Mr. Windybank has installed here in his shop. I call it the red-handed recorder. Is that not so, Mr. Windybank? What's that deep sigh about? What on earth is red-handed recorder? Use your eyes, my dear fellow. There are 2 just below the ceiling. What, cameras? Yeah, cameras, okay. I can see what appears to be a camera attached to some sort of timing device. Very astute. It is indeed a camera, furnished with some 100 pieces of celluloid film. And every 30 minutes precisely, the camera automatically records the appearance of the shop. Something tells me this is gonna come and play a role at some point in the story. Here, I have an example I can show you. Ah yes, a print from the camera set to record the activity at the shop counter. I developed a special type of film so sensitive it produces a crystal clear image even in darkness. Really? That's extraordinary. You can clearly see the counter and the door behind it. Look. So you see, were someone to enter the premises with ill intent, his identity would be summarily exposed. But did you not say that the photographic prints were taken every 30 minutes or something? Indeed, as you say, my dear madam. Then what if the incident were to occur in between times? One could only say that would be a cruel twist of fate. I must confess your devices have been giving me some cause for distress of late. I beg your pardon, Mr. Windybank? Surely they are anything but distressing. Reassuring is the word. It's the cost of the film, sir. You most graciously placed not one but 2 cameras in my shop after all, which means I must pay for nigh on 100 utterly useless prints every single day. I'm afraid the cost of the film will break me before I'm very much older. Nevertheless, a small price to pay to ensure the safety of my preferred pawnbrokery, no? My dear fellows, we verge on an age where safety and security come at a price. Oh, heaven help us. Now then, Mr. Sholmes, allow me to return your precious violin. Ah, the very thing. Thank you, Mr. Windybank. Perhaps this might mark the end of the peculiar items you try to pop, Because if anything were to happen to one of them, this would be the only answer. I really think you ought to stop waving that gun around. Someone could get hurt. Fear not. Sorry. I've only loaded a single bullet, so no one but myself could possibly be armed. That's not really what I meant. Good day to you then, Mr. Windybank. It's been a pleasure as always, Mr. Sholmes. So, Mr. Naruhodo, now we can explore at last. There seems to be a little door hidden behind that curtain there. That leads to the storage room where Mr. Windybank keeps articles that are currently in pawn. Just want to quickly check how long this case is. Okay, 4 parts of investigation and 4 parts of trial. Which means it is about 25% longer than the last one. There's nothing of particular interest inside. I certainly wouldn't recommend any larcenous activity. Recommended or not, it's not something I tend to do. There is but one key, and Mr. Windybank keeps it in his pocket at all times. Before he sleeps, he places it into a small pot which he slides under his pillow. How on earth do you know about that, Mr. Sholmes? I am a detective, sir. It is my business to know what others do not. I am frequently assailed by information that I neither care for nor wish to retain. Mr. Sholmes, you are a wonder. And the prime suspect if this pawnbrokery is ever burgled. What an assortment of things there are on these shelves here. Crockery, footwear, clocks and watches. Almost anything you care to imagine. Those are forfeited items offered for sale by the pawnbroker. What does that really mean, though? When you pawn or colloquially pop an item, the broker loans you money against its worth. He stores the item for an agreed period of time after which the loan must be repaid. If not, he is free to display it in his shop for sale at a price of his choosing. Oh yes, now you've explained it. I'm noticing little price tags on everything. Of course, simply paying the agreed interest on the loan, one can extend the period of safekeeping. So you may pawn that black garb of yours without fear, my dear fellow. My treasured university uniform? Never! It embodies my student spirit. Hats? By the way, I think that other guy, Mr. Garideb, mentioned going to a pawnbroker where he bought a lion statue before. I wonder if this is the one. Maybe. Look at this. What could this lovely big shiny box be? That, my dear madam, is a music box. Surely you have such things in your own country. Oh my, yes, but I've certainly never seen one so large before. Shall we listen a while? Ah, what a sublime sound. It's like the music of angels. I've never heard anything like it before in my life. This particular specimen is of the larger variety, commonly found in public houses and restaurants. There is a metal disc inside on which the notes to be played are recorded. Simply by replacing the disc with another, any music you care to imagine can be played. My goodness, what a simply delightful machine. Indeed, though their popularity has waned recently with the development of the gramophone, of course. Ah, science and technology advance at such an overwhelming pace. Oh yeah, what's this? Some kind of telephone? Seems to have two little windows for looking through. Is it a... Yeah, I was gonna say, those very early machines where you look at pictures inside. And it's the earliest example of stereoscopy, so you can see images in 3D. I thought I remembered something about that. Allow me to enlighten you, my dear fellows. What you are looking at is a stereoscope. Okay. Stereoscope. Fascinating. It is aptly named, I assure you. Look through the eyepieces and see for yourself. Oh, I should be delighted to. Excuse me a moment while I just have a look. On 3DS, if they let you see, you would be able to see them in 3D, I would imagine. Just before you do, there is something I should point out. My dear fellows, in order to see the image properly, stereoscopically, as it were, you will need to be cross-eyed. Oh. However, if that is beyond you, it is of little consequence today. Alright then, I'm going to try it. Naruhodo, you must see at once. Oh, alright then. So I need to be cross-eyed, like I'm trying to look at my own nose. Okay. Well, for me, I'm looking at it on a large enough screen, so... Hold on. It would have been in 3D on 3DS, I bet. I can't cross my eyes enough so to make the two images be on top of one another, I'm afraid. No, I can't. I'm just gonna hurt my eyes if I try. But yeah, it's supposed to be 3D. I don't believe it. It's just a photographic print, but it seems like you could reach out and touch it. Yes, the sense of depth is startling, is it not? Stereoscopes are one of London's many fads. They are often found in little stalls in the park. People queues for hours to see them. Why are people meddling with such black magic? Black magic. It is no magic, my dear madam. It is, well... far too complicated to explain at present. We shall save this lesson for another day. Yeah, on a real stereoscope, you would just have to look through both eye fixtures, and that would allow you to see one image with each eye in true stereoscopic fashion, as it were. What is that? Honestly, I don't have a clue. I have no idea. Even if you show me closer, there's a small catch just here. Look. We're going to open it, aren't we? Oh my, that's amazing. It has some sort of spring-loaded mechanism, which we'll never manage to put back to the way it was before. What are you two doing? What, us? Nothing? No, nothing at all. Whatever this device is, it seems to have a pair of little windows to look through. I feel as though I've seen something rather similar to this elsewhere. Just there? Yeah, it would be some kind of portable stereoscope. That's not a calendar you could easily miss, is it? 15th of April, today's date. Yes, that's not for sale, I must point out. It is an Eastern-style page-a-day calendar. Every night at midnight, I tear off the front page to reveal the following day's date. The perfect calendar for a tearaway fellow such as yourself, Mr. Windybank. And who was it who walked out of here with the wrong violin before? Well, when the agreed storage period has passed without repayment, articles are forfeited, you see. So I have to keep a close eye on the date. It's something of a pawnbroker's obsession, you might say. Oh yes, I can see you're very dedicated to your job. What? Only tuppence for it? That ain't fair and you know it. The article is barely worth a penny, miss. I cannot offer more. Sounds like there's an argument brewing over by the counter. Come on, that can't be right. Have you even had a proper butcher's at it? I've seen all I need to see, young girl. Yeah, I thought from the way she spoke that I knew who that was. Wait, don't we... It's Gina Lestrade? Oh yes, it's the young lady from Mr. McGillet's trial 2 months ago. Her name is Gina Lestrade, my lord. She's a chancer, earns her crust among large crowds, relieving people of their purses. What's commonly called a pickpocket. She's pretty. Gordon Bennett. Gordon Bennett, you lot. Wait. She stole that device again? Hello, Miss Lestrade. I hope you've been well. Hey, what? You remember me then, do ya? Well, I remember being completely surrounded by smoke, that's for sure. So, what are you doing in here? Down and out like the rest of us. Nothing to eat. Come to pop that black weasel. Sorry, coat, have ya? What is it about this black uniform that makes everyone comment on it? Ah, good day, unless I'm much mistaken. You would be the young pickpocket who stole our experimental smoke grenade launcher, and she seems to have stolen it again. Alright, Mr. Sholmes. So, you have something of value to pawn, do you? Allow me to see the article and I shall negotiate with Mr. Windybank on your behalf. Pull the other one, I don't need no help from some stuck-up D. Get out of my business. Go on or I'll make trouble for you. As you wish, Mr. Lestrade. I will happily remove myself from your presence. He's really done it. He's gone. I'm sorry, but as I said, there's really no room for negotiation here. What is that thing he has in his hand? Some kind of metal disc? And you, go on, leave me alone! Oh, Miss Lestrade, just pretend we aren't here. We shan't be offended in the slightest. Susada-san can really stand her ground when she wants to. Whatever. Hey, check this out. Would you have a look at, that's strange. Where's my armband gone? What's the problem? Something wrong? Don't suppose you're looking for this? Yes, but how? And when? And how again? I got a talent for an Evanai dive-in that's bordering on black magic. And it makes what I was about to say about my armband seem a little dull. So what do you want to tell me about it then? Is there anything else that we haven't yet? Look at Mr. Windybank watching diligently over his shop. There are still so many things I'm curious about. I don't believe this is a time for browsing, Mr. Naruhodo. We should probably see whether that argument's been resolved yet, I suppose. Okay. Somehow, I didn't really think you were the sort of person who'd use a pawnbroker, Mr. Strad. Yeah, well, I am, alright. I'm a Londoner, just like everyone else. That a problem, is it? I think in her case, she brings things here to get money in exchange, and she never plans on paying back for these items, I guess. No, not at all. It's just that, well... Oh, I get it. I know what you're thinking. That thing probably don't even belong to her. Probably got it on the dive, didn't she? Yeah, I can see it written all over your Chevy Chase. Well, were we wrong? Well, I might have been thinking something along those lines. You're not going to deny it, Mr. Naruhodo? Alright then, I'm just going to come out and ask you straight. Do you pawn things that you steal from other people? Well, I don't know how best to answer that, really. Suppose, sometimes. You're not going to deny it either, Miss Lestrade. But not this time, alright? I swear, that thing belongs to me. The disc that Mr. Windybank is holding. Perhaps you should see what he has to say about all this. Mr. Windybank, what exactly is this metal disc that Miss Lestrade has brought in? It seems to have hundreds of tiny little bumps on its surface. Ah, this is a music disc, you see, for use inside a music box. In a music box? What? You don't even know what a music box is? You Eastern lot ain't too savvy, eh? I know what a music box is, I've just never seen one of these discs before. The small protrusions on the metal disc encode the tune to be played by the music box. You simply insert the disc and set the machine going, and beautiful music plays. It's so incredible. Tell us, what tune is on this disc? Well, I'm afraid I couldn't tell you that. There are so many different types of music box, you see. British made, German, Swiss. They don't all use the same mechanism. I have no way of knowing which particular machine this disc was made for. Ah, I see. And that's it in a nutshell. I wouldn't have any customers for an item like this even if the young lady forfeited it. Really, I'm already offering more than I should at a penny. That's a packet of lies. He told me he did. He said it was, well... He? Who? Never you mind. It just ain't right, that's all. That disc's worth good money. I know it is. Well, then you'll have to try your luck at another pawnbroker's, won't you? Ah. She's been in before, of course, this little tatterdemalion. I see. I brought some dubious article or other with her every single time, I might add. Dubious? What are you trying to say? I'm an honest customer, me. So is there something dubious about the disc she brought in today? Well, if only it were that simple. Sorry, what do you mean? What she actually brought in was a storage ticket. A storage ticket? So... Mr. Strat has actually come to redeem an article from you today, is that right? Yeah, that's right. A girl like me has a lot of stuff what needs storing. Alright, yes, that's definitely dubious. The article in question would have been forfeited at midnight tonight, but as she gave me the ticket for it and repaid both the loan and the interest, I was obliged to return the article to her. What was the article? Do tell us, Mr. Windybank. The little scamp is wearing it, ma'am. It's the overcoat that she redeemed. Yeah, she wasn't wearing it last time we saw her, indeed. What? What's wrong with that? It fits, don't it? I mean, it's mine, so of course it does. So, what about the disc then? How does that come into all this? Ah, the disc is something else. A new article to pawn if the girl and I can agree a price. I'm confused. I thought you said that Miss Lestrade brought in a storage ticket today. It's really quite simple. Yes, the child brought me a storage ticket and the money owed on it, as you say. For this heavy black coat which you returned to her care as I understood it. That's right, yes, and rather unsurprisingly, as soon as the little ragamuffin put the thing on, she went rifling through the pockets. Oh, you mean... What? Don't you know it's rude to stare at a lady? Ah, I see. So it came from the pocket of the overcoat, did it? If you mean this disc, then yes, exactly, ma'am. And she immediately tried to pawn it? For quite a high price as well. That is all rather suspicious, I think. Give it up, I'm just trying to pawn something like anyone else would. Miss Lestrade, may I ask who deposited the overcoat here in the first place? Well, me. It doesn't really appear to be your size. Me old man, it's me old man's, ain't it? Is it, Miss Lestrade? Yes, this is definitely all rather suspicious. Out of my way, please. Who's this gentleman? Who's this picture postcard English gentleman? That mannerism. Good day to you, ladies, gentlemen. What's your problem, eh? There is no problem as long as you remove yourself. I have a matter to discuss with the proprietor. And if you intend to make a problem of it, I shall see you outside, little girl, for the hiding you deserve. Look, ain't it obvious? I ain't done talking with him yet. If you think you're such a gent, you should know how to wait in line. Well, you are an impudent little brat, aren't you? As well as a pickpocket. Eh? Who are you? How'd you know who I am? The question is, how do you not know who I am? You haven't the courtesy even to remember the faces of your victims, it seems. What? You mean from you? Broker! Yes, sir. I believe this filthy pocket thief has just redeemed an article from you, no? Yes, the article in question belongs to me. I demand for it to be returned at once. Oh my! What, the overcoat? Now that's a lie. What are you trying to pull? Give me back my overcoat, you wastrel. And needless to say, any music box discs too. If he knows about the disc, he's probably saying telling the truth. No, you can't have it. You just can't. It's me old man's, or it was. Now it's mine. It's possible that it really was her father's, but that he bought it from the pawn shop first, I guess. It was past the redeeming period, so the pawnbroker set it up for sale, and this guy bought it, so it became his. But with our notion of propriety and stuff like that, she may have thought to herself, I just went over the date a little and I want it back now, or something. It's not impossible that he bought it and then pawned it after the fact, because Sholmes said that he tends to do that or something. Like pawning stuff, then going and getting it again, and then buying another suit, for example, or something like that. But anyway, okay, let's move on. Goodness, Mr. Naruhodo. This is a very awkward situation. Yes, I think perhaps we should hear both sides of the story in a little more detail. Let me converse with her. I'm more interested in her side. Miss Lestrade, is what the gentleman is saying... What do you think? It's all lies, ain't it? Obviously. I swear on my life, I ain't never laid eyes on that dandy before. Let's hear it now, you little ragamuffin. You stole it, didn't you? that ticket you brought in here just now. No, I swear it, I swear to God. It was barely an hour ago. I was walking along the street minding my own business when this little gutterling ran into me. I knew at once what had happened. I've been robbed yet again, I thought to myself. Those wretched pickpockets. Yet again? Oh yes, as you can see, I am a man of impeccable style. This isn't the first time that I've been targeted by these backslum scoundrels. Now then, relinquish my overcoat. Urgh. Come along now, Mr. Strad. Give the good gentleman his coat back. If you're going to cause trouble, I shall have no choice but to call the police. Hold on, why does everyone think it's me? Just look at this dandy cove, and you think I'm the dodgy one? I'm sorry, but no one's going to believe you. Well, what about evidence? Yeah, where's your evidence that I've stolen something, eh? Come on, let's see it. I half expect Sholmes to come back and have his own deduction or something. Oh, I have evidence, naturally. You what? Evidence that the article Mr. Strad redeemed actually belongs to this gentleman. Of course, we need only consult with Mr. Windybank's ledger to know the truth. We'll be able to look up the name of the person who deposited the article in the first place. Yes, brilliant. I'm very sorry, but I'm afraid that won't be possible. Oh? I never ask customers' names. That's a strict policy of mine. But why not? Well now, as you can imagine, some of my customers have circumstances to consider. A great many of them prefer to maintain their anonymity. Yes, I see. But then how can you know if an article belongs to the person asking to redeem it? If they have the ticket, I guess it's enough. Oh, it's quite simple. Good sir, might I trouble you for the watchword associated with the article in question? Of course, it's... Professor. Yes, that's right. And all the evidence we need, this gentleman is the rightful owner of the article, without doubt. A watchword? Interesting. So about these watchwords, Mr. Windybank. As I just explained, I never ask customers' names when they deposit items with me. There are many reasons why. Certain customers would like to keep their activities secret. That wasn't exactly a subtle glance at Mr. Sholmes now, was it? Great detectives have no dark secrets, not at all. Yes, well, anyway, that's why I always ask for a watchword whenever I accept a new article. In many ways, it's like the secret combination of numbers used to unlock a vault. The date of deposit, a description, and a watchword uniquely identify each item. And of course, then I give the storage ticket to the customer. When someone comes to redeem something, I ask for the ticket and the watchword. But she has the code already, so she knew the watchword as well. And if that someone tells you the correct watchword, you return the article? That's right, sir, yes, just as soon as the requisite fee is paid. But she just had both then. Otherwise, she wouldn't be wearing it now, would she? And I have supplied you with the information you require already, but for the avoidance of doubt, the article in question is an overcoat, deposited 2 months ago on 15th February. With the watchword of Professor. All perfectly correct information, sir. But how? Really, this is beyond a joke now. There is no further room for doubt. Hey, where is he? He's gone. I wanted to talk to him. Excuse me, but who are you? One would expect the inquirer to introduce himself first. Though clearly you are not British, so perhaps our ways are foreign to you. Oh, sorry, yes, we're from the Empire of Japan. We're studying here. Oh yes, Japan. I've heard talk of the place. Its inhabitants live in some fiery brown-colored soup dressed up with exotic spices. You might be thinking of somewhere else, and what was that theatrical gesticulation about? Perhaps anyway, if you are a gentleman, sir, you offer your own name first before inquiring after the name of another. Of course, yes, I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a lawyer. Well, a student of law, really. My name is Susato Mikotoba. I am Mr. Naruhodo's assistant. I see. My name is Benedict. Yes, Eggert Benedict. Is there a joke or a play on words in that name? Not sure. Enchanté. So refined in how he holds himself and how he speaks, but that name is suspicious. Now to the matter at hand. My overcoat, return it at once to someone with the style to carry it off. Every move he makes, every breath he takes, I can't stand watching him. Every move you make, every breath you take. So let that be an end to the matter. And thank you for your custom, Mr. Eggert Benedict, sir. With such reasonable rates of interest, I may even decide to come back. This is why I hate grown-ups. Just cause I'm a diver, everyone thinks that makes me a liar. And the content of the coat pockets, if you please, broker. But of course, sir, here is the disc for you. Just this one? Pardon, sir? I was expecting another, that is, I deposited another disc. Oh dear. I regret to inform you, sir, that what was deposited with me was merely the overcoat. The disc happened to be in one of the pockets, but I was completely unaware of it until now. So, Gutterling, you're hiding more of what's rightfully mine, are you? Says who, eh? I don't know nothing about it. Very well. Then I shall bid you farewell. Say goodbye to style. Wait a minute, that disc is mine. Alright, what do you think you're doing, you little tramp? You've drawn blood, you filthy animal. Oh my, yes, there's blood on the disc. It's because of those sharp little bumps. The man must have scratched his finger on them. I found it first, alright? I mean, it belonged to me, old man. So you're not having it. Or you take it. Me? If I hang on to it, they'll have it off me again, so you keep hold of it. Miss Lestrade, why is this disc so important to her? The music box disc has been entered into the court record. You there in the black livery. Livery or livery? I'm not even sure what that means. I mean, he's talking about his clothes, but what is the meaning of the word itself? Livery. It's a type of coat. Okay. Livré. The translation to French is weird, but then again, it might be an old word that we don't use anymore because it's supposed to be not exactly modern English either. So, hand that disc to me at once, please. No, don't. He's lying. Grown-ups are all liars. What do I do now? How am I going to resolve this? Holmes, a bit of help? Mr. Sholmes, what are you examining with such keen interest there? As you enjoy a bar of caramel, I see. So, you found me at last, Mr. Naruhodo. You weren't exactly hidden, sorry. After that young pickpocket sent me on my way, I was forced to lurk in the shadows, cruelly ostracized as the rest of you partook in the jovial atmosphere of fellowship. I had nothing to occupy my mind, but was too ashamed to let society see what my downfall had done to me. So feigning mock interest, I pretended to examine the tedious trinkets in this desolate place. Whilst, as you shrewdly observed, gnawing on the only friend I have left, this 7% solution of caramel. Pray do you claim to understand the depth of my despair, Mr. Naruhodo, but how could you? He's so over the top and dramatic. I love it. I was so lonely, so desperately lonely, then why on earth didn't you rejoin the conversation? Things have gone from bad to worse here, you know? Yes, I overheard much of your conversation, or rather, in my craving for human contact, my ears devoured every word that was uttered. You really were sad, weren't you? Poor Mr. Sholmes, I feel simply awful for you. It would seem that my inferences are correct. Oh, surely you're not about to tell us that you've solved the entire case once again? My dear madam, sometimes I wonder, were my genius for deduction to be commoditized? How much could I pawn it for? It seems Mr. Sholmes has had another of his flashes of inspiration, but who knows if it will help to resolve the situation between Miss Lestrade and the mysterious gentleman. What's the right thing to do here? Let's listen to it, just because it could be fun. Because he's likely to get everything wrong again. Well, Miss Lestrade, it would appear you find yourself in something of a predicament. Where the blue blazes have you been, eh? Pardon? When a lady's in trouble, a true gent's supposed to be there to help. Straight away, not an hour later. Harsh. And who, pray tell, are you? Mr. Eggert Benedict, you have in my eyes a veritably encyclopedic array of curiosities about your person. Nevertheless, there are two immovable conclusions I have drawn. I beg your pardon? The first is this. The true reason for your visit to this pawnbrokery today is something you have not yet revealed. And the second is this. A considerable crime is in contemplation, one you will orchestrate with intent to steal a vast sum of money. Well, Mr. Benedict, what say you to my deductions? How? He's turned as white as a hard-boiled egg. It would seem that once again Mr. Sholmes has made a flawless deduction. Actually... yeah, it's a recipe, okay, it's a dish, Eggs Benedict. Yeah, okay. I thought I had heard that before, but I wasn't sure. And now that they say he is as white as a hard-boiled egg, I thought to myself, is that a pun on his name or something? But yeah, I guess it kind of is. Ah, but it's poached eggs, though, Eggs Benedict. Okay, and it's something popular in New York City, according to Wikipedia. Okay. Okay, so that was the pun with his name, I guess. Eggert Benedict. Just who do you think you are, sir? Ah, yes, as I hoped. That is precisely the pained expression I was looking for. So, shall we begin? The time has come for yet another Herlock Sholmes' logic and reasoning spectacular. The game is afoot. Mystery Man's Aim. First of all, we must ask ourselves on what business you ventured to this pawnbrokery today. You claim to have followed this pickpocket here, having had the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. But that is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different. What's that thing he's holding in his hand, by the way? Sort of a flyer for something? Or there's a signature on it. I'm not sure what that is. We'll see anyway. Ah well, okay, there's the answer. As revealed by that which you hold in your hand. Yes, what brought you to this shop in the first place is the staff recruitment flyer. The piece of paper in your hand is a staff wanted advertisement for this very shop, is it? Yet even the most unobservant would soon realize that a man of your appearance has no need of such employee. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. There are initials on the cane, AG. The cane which you unwittingly clutched to your person exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot. I've had this cane for years. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the missing ferrule. The end of any walking cane would be terminated by a metal ferrule to protect the wooden tip. And yet detailed analysis shows the wooden tip of this stick to be utterly bare. I'm more interested in the initials myself. Therefore, there is only one conclusion. The rod that you hold in your hand, which appears to be a walking cane, is in fact no cane at all. You recoil, sir. Is something wrong? And in your recoiling, you inadvertently facilitate the answer of the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle, which you evidently would like to conceal, is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. From the moment I saw it, my suspicions were aroused. What walking cane demands such a stout handle, mused I. But of course, as I said, this is no walking cane. No, that rod is the broken handle of a shovel. What? Are you insane? It's a bit too ornate, I would say, to be the handle of a shovel. And now, having determined this undeniable truth, the conclusion is near. Your true motive for coming here was to take employment at this establishment in order to excavate the ground beneath the premises. What a calculated crime you have conceived, sir. A wickedly calculated crime. To tunnel underneath the pawnbrokery. Topic 2. Great crime. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, intend to excavate the ground beneath this pawnbrokery with a broken shovel? What on earth do you propose I could expect to find there? Some long-forgotten treasure, I suppose? Save for such a fanciful theory, what possible reason could I have to do as you say? Oh, but there is an ample reason. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider what would motivate a man to infiltrate a shop such as this and covertly dig beneath its floor. The answer is revealed by the council notice on the counter to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. This letter gives notice of public works to be carried out in the local area. Wasn't he looking at the gun more than likely? And according to the enclosed plan of the upcoming sewerage works, beneath this shop runs a sewer that adjoins another, one that runs under the bank on the opposite side of the road. This madness has entered the sewers now, has it? By excavating the ground beneath our feet, you would gain access to the waterway that flows in very close proximity to the great vault of the financial institution opposite. What are you? In summary, sir, you devised a master plan to pull off an elaborate bank robbery by dint of the underground tunnels. Master plan? Which brings us at last to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. With what plunder did the thief hope to make off from the underground vault of the bank? Are you quite serious? Having consulted with Scotland Yard some days ago, I happen to know the answer. But naturally, the answer is no secret to you, is it, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. London Crystal Tower? You see this picture postcard? Tell us all we need to know. Postcard of the Great Exhibition? I'm afraid you've quite lost me. Currently in the final stages of preparation, the Great Exhibition will soon be on the way, and the government has provided extra funds to complete its centerpiece, the Crystal Tower. Funds that currently sit in the vault of the bank, on the other side of this road. Pardon? Yes, the considerable crime you have been contemplating is the theft of that which sits in the vault of that bank. The special reserve funds for the Great Exhibition. Of course, that is top secret police information, so keep it under your hat, please. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this pawnbroking puzzle. And I agree, he's shady alright, but I don't necessarily think that what he says is true. Mr. Sholmes? Well, Mr. Naruhodo, an impressively upbeat deduction for a detective racked with loneliness, wouldn't you not agree? Was it true what you said about the bank over the road and what it has in its vault? Indeed, though few know of its existence, it is one of the government's most closely guarded secrets. Gregson told me in the strictest confidence. But you just announced it to everyone here, rather loudly in fact. Ah, and if it's such a big secret, how would Mr. Benedict have come to find out about it? There can be but one explanation for that. Clearly it is because the man is a criminal. But what if he didn't know anything about the money in the vault? If he is a criminal, as you said, then buying a brand new shovel is sure to be the first thing he does now that you've revealed the secret. Oh, or if he doesn't, maybe Mr. Windybank will. He already has plenty of shovels here after all. Oh my life, I assure you I'm not so unscrupulous. Well, hopefully this has taught you a valuable lesson. Sensitive information must be handled with the utmost care. One can never be sure that someone privy to secrets won't disclose them, and once the word is out, it's out. Perhaps I'll think twice before confiding in you next time, Mr. Sholmes. An excellent idea, Mr. Naruhodo, an excellent idea. Ha 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 ha. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo, you know what to do, I'm sure. Yes, let's listen to that great deduction again, and see if we can massage it into shape. Very well then, let us start once more from the beginning. Of Sherlock Holmes' magnificent logic and reasoning spectacular. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. Okay. What business? You claim to have followed this pickpocket here, having had the redemption ticket stolen from you on the street. But that is most certainly a lie. The real truth is something quite different. Staff recruitment flyer. So, by Mr. Sholmes' reasoning, Mr. Benedict came here in order to apply for a job so he could dig down through the floor. Yes, in an attempt to tunnel into the sewers to gain access to the money in the vault of the bank across the road. But he wouldn't get very far with a broken shovel, would he? No, I think it's fair to say his motives lie elsewhere. The question is where? What did bring Mr. Benedict here at this particular point in time? Oh, look at all the scribbled notes on the back of the flyer here. I don't believe it. What is it? Listen to what it says. Name Gina Lestrade, height 5'2", green cap, scruffy waistcoat, grubby white shirt, blue satchel, ragged. It's a detailed description of Miss Lestrade. goodness, there's even a sketch of her, hat and all. Although if he showed it to her, she'd fire that smoke grenade launcher in his face for sure. And look, the details of this shop have been written down here too. Windy Banks Pawnbrokery, Baker Street, redemption deadline 15th of April, which is today's date. Why would Mr. Benedict have all that information scrawled on the back of that piece of paper? Well, that's probably it. Could I... Yes, what brought you to this shop in the first place is the info about Miss Lestrade. Quite so, my dear fellow. It would appear that the writing and sketch on the reverse of the flyer pertain to the pickpocket Miss Lestrade and to Mr. Windybank's pawnbrokery here. Ah. You originally told us that you had merely given chase after Miss Lestrade stole the redemption ticket from you. Sorry, hold on. But that, sir, is a thinly veiled lie. It is the information on the back of the flyer that led you here today, by which I mean here to Windybank's pawnbrokery, and today the redemption deadline of that overcoat. So you waited outside for the young girl matching the description you have written down to arrive. And you have gone to some length to hide the reason for your pursuit of Miss Lestrade. In other words, there is some ulterior motive for your actions. The cane which you unwittingly clutched to your person exhibits an incontrovertible contradiction. What utter rot! I've had this cane for years. Why would they be different initials if it really was his cane? What's if a rule? It's the metal cap commonly found on the end of a cane, Mr. Naruhodo. Ah, the bit that makes the nice clacking sound on the pavement. Yes, exactly, and Mr. Sholmes is right. It appears to be missing on this cane. But it doesn't actually look broken, does it? No, it doesn't, though the gentleman certainly did recoil when Mr. Sholmes identified the cane as suspicious. In other words, there's some secret about the cane that Mr. Benedict would rather we don't know. AG. Look here, Mrs. Sato. There are some letters on the handle. Ah, yes, those must be initials, I think. In the West, it's customary for people to engrave their belongings with the first letters of their names. So Herlock Sholmes would be HS, what do you mean? It would be EB if it was him. Ah, right. And the initials on this cane, obviously... Oh. AG? Why does it feel as though that's not quite right? Okay. The contradiction of which I speak is, of course, the initialing. A most astute observation, wouldn't you say, Mr. Eggert Benedict? We are led to believe, sir, that your initials are EB. Yet in a most possessive manner, you have in your grasp a cane bearing the initials AG. An incontrovertible contradiction indeed, would you not agree? No, you're wrong. This cane isn't... You said before that you'd had that cane for years. Grr. So don't try to tell us that you just borrowed it from a friend or found it in the park. In short, though you hold yourself to be a gentleman, you have withheld your true name. You recoil, sir. Is something wrong? And in your recoiling, you inadvertently facilitate the answer of the next conundrum to present itself. Namely, what is the truth behind this rod you bear? Yes, your reaction betrays the truth. The handle which you evidently would like to conceal is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. Let's consider the bare bones of what's happened here. Miss Lestrade redeemed that fine-looking overcoat, and now a mysterious man has appeared, introducing himself with a fake name, and claiming that the overcoat belongs to him. But we know that he actually identified Miss Lestrade from a written description, which suggests that everything else he's told us is untrue. So what we need to do here is somehow prove that the overcoat cannot possibly belong to him. It's too small for him. Oh, the seam on the shoulder there is coming apart. Look! So it is. Do you know, a moment ago when Mr. Benedict was surprised by something that was said, I thought I heard him make a rather strange noise. It sounded a bit like a tiny growl. But now I think it was probably the sound of this seam ripping open. If you look closely, it does seem to be a very tight fit. The sleeves are stretched to bursting, and he wouldn't have a hope of fastening it at the front. If he were to run around in it, I'm sure the whole thing would fall apart. That I'd like to see. Sorry? So how can we make Mr. Benedict run around? She's really giving this some thought. The split seam which you evidently would like to conceal is the key to understanding this riddle, you see. Yes, because the overcoat is rather obviously a poor fit. Having forced it over your broad shoulders, the seam is already breaking apart. My suspicions were aroused from the outset. When you so boldly lied about your name and so boldly waylaid this pickpocket... Arg. This catalog of untruth has all been for one very specific purpose. To steal the article that the young girl redeemed from Mr. Windybank. But what really irks me is this. The considerable crime I initially imagined has been considerably curtailed. To abscond with a redeemed item. Now, Mr. Benedict, let us continue. For we must expose the details of this elaborate crime you have in the planning. This is utterly absurd. You suggest that I, a gentleman, designed a wheeze to filch some tawdry article of pawnage? Have you forgotten that I redeemed the article in the proper manner using the watchword? Had I not been the one to deposit it in the first place, how could I possibly have known the relevant detail, n'est-ce pas? Oh, but the watchword can be discovered. As you are only too well aware, Mr. Benedict. You looked at the ledger before? Ah, and your furtive glance is more telling than I could have hoped. What? Let us consider how one might come to learn a secret watchword relating to the pawn's property or of another. The method is revealed by the council notice on the counter to which you're... No, it's the ledger, probably, then. The direction of the deduction must change rather dramatically now, I think. Yes, no more talk of tunneling into the sewers, which is a pity because it all sounded rather exciting. Anyway, you can't deny that this mysterious gentleman did know the watchword. Yes, Professor. If you didn't know that word, Mr. Windybank would never allow you to redeem the article. Or looking at it another way, if you didn't know that word, Mr. Windybank would allow you to redeem the article whether it was yours or not. So the question is, could this gentleman have found the watchword out somehow? Noteslet? Look at this, Mr. Sato. Ah, it appears to be a memo that Mr. Windybank has scribbled to himself. Let's see, what does it say? Oh, Professor. Mr. Windybank must make a note of the watchwords his customers give him right before their eyes. And in alarmingly clear script as well. Oh dear, I don't know where to look. Who knows what other secrets I might see. Seemed pretty obvious. The method is revealed by the notelet on the counter to which your eyes were inadvertently drawn. Yes, the broker here follows the same procedure whenever a customer comes to redeem an article. He asks the customer for the watchwords and notes down the response uttered on the notelet he has to hand. Then he consults his ledger and confirms whether or not the watchword matches that of the article in question. I would expect nothing less of a diligent pawnbroker. But his diligence clearly has its disadvantages. What are you talking about? It is increasingly apparent that you were present in this shop before your accusation against Miss Lestrade. In all likelihood, you followed her inside and then observed her talking to Mr. Windybank. When the diligent broker made a note of the watchword as is his common practice, that was hard to push out. You observed him writing the word professor on the notelet beside the ledger. And that, sir, was the master plan you devised to steal the pawned article from the young Mr. Strad. Master plan? Which brings us at last to the final chapter of this lurid scheme. Why would you go to such length to redeem that particular article from this pawnbroker? Are you quite serious? For an ill-fitting overcoat hardly seems to justify the effort, much less a worthless music box disc. But naturally you had a very good reason to make them yours, didn't you, Mr. Benedict? I have no idea what you're talking about. Allow me to present a rather interesting piece of evidence. You see, this picture postcard tells us all we need to know. The articles we're talking about are the overcoat and the music box disc that was in one of the pockets, which according to Mr. Windybank isn't even worth a penny, and yet this man went to such length to steal them. Why? I wonder if perhaps we already have the evidence we need to explain it, Mr. Naruhodo. Could we? Really? I'd better have a thorough look through all the evidence we've collected so far, and there can't be that much. Look at this. 4 McGilded. There's a little scrap of paper stuck onto the reverse side of the disc, look, and a scribbled word or two. It looks like somebody's name. 4 McGilded? McGilded? It couldn't be. But it is, Mr. Naruhodo, a name I shall never forget for as long as I live. But why? Why is his name on this? Music box disc's information has been updated in the court record. Yeah, okay. You see, this music box disc tells us all we need to know. What's that? On the back? It reads, for McGilded. Arr! Ah, Mr. Magnus McGilded, the unfortunate philanthropist who perished in curious circumstances at the Old Bailey 2 months ago. A prominent man in London, though his loan-mongering demonstrated a distinct lack of scruples. So, you're an associate of his, how are you? Or perhaps a subordinate? Mr. McGilded was a man of unusually small stature. In fact, he was precisely the right size for that overcoat that you've squeezed yourself into. Was McGilded the old man of Gina Lestrade? Or maybe a fatherly figure, maybe, to her, no? That sounds more plausible. Because he protected her before. Your true identity remains shrouded in mystery, Mr. Eggert Benedict. But the final conclusion here is crystal clear. The reason you came to this pawnbrokery today was to retrieve an article left behind by the late Magnus McGilded. Arg! Okay. I'm tired. Deduction complete. Elementary. Well, well, Mr. Magnus McGilded, not the name I expected to hear in these circumstances. Mr. Sholmes, I'm afraid there's something very troubling on my mind. Pray tell, Mr. Sato. Well, according to what Mr. Windybank told us earlier, today was the final day on which the coat could have been redeemed, was it not? Yes, ma'am, that is correct. Today would be precisely 2 months since it was first deposited. Well, today is 15th April, so 2 months ago today would have been 15th February, sir. That's right. It's all carefully recorded in my ledger. Deposited at 10:30 p.m., I see. What? But that suggests that was right before he died. It's precisely the day on which the omnibus murder took place? Ah, no, not quite then. and 10:30 in the evening is precisely the time at which the terrible events were unfolding. Suggestive is not the word. It would seem the matter is entirely beyond coincidence. You are, of course, at liberty to make whatever outlandish deductions you choose. However... Uh-oh! I must insist you hand over the music box disc now. It would be a terrible shame for you to return to your native land in a box. Alright, what do I do? Do you get a game over if you say no and you get killed? There are some things a man must protect at all costs. This may well be one of those things. Then again, it may not. Mr. Windybank, this is my shop. I can't allow any harm to come to my customers. If that were to happen, I should have to take my own life. Mr. Windybank, no! Alright, that's enough. Aha! Inspector Gregson! Inspector? That's right, Sunshine. The alarm was raised on one of our dedicated emergency lines. So we got here as fast as we could. Now, what's all this about, eh? Oh, praise be, you're here at last. I was moments away from forfeiting my own life in my very own establishment. You mind putting that gun away now? It would seem you have the upper hand. Can we get the code back now? Ah, yeah, thank you. Right, you lot have got some explaining to do. I don't appreciate being bothered with some petty argy-bargy. Petty? Mr. Windybank very nearly met his end. With his end. Okay, sorry. Yes, by his own gun as far as I can tell. Oh dear. And the whole of Britain could meet with its end if I don't get to the bottom of the case I'm supposed to be working on. What? What on earth is the case, Inspector? Spare no detail, Gregson. I might have said a little too much. No matter, it's nothing to do with you lot. Anyway, sir, you're gonna have to come with me down to the station. But of course, Inspector. Infinite fish. I like it. Can I have the same? But of course, Inspector. Yeah, okay. Ah! He's getting away! Get after him, lads! Whistle the beat officer too! Sir! Okay. There's been a spate of thefts at pawn shops around here recently, so we've fitted emergency buttons underneath the counters for brokers to let us know when there's trouble. How modern of them for the time period. Oh, Inspector, I was very worried there for a while. Very worried indeed. Now then, Mr. Permanently in mourning. Oh, yes? I'll be taking that whatever it is of McGildit's down to the yard. Thank you very much. So hand it over. Oh, yes, of course. No, don't give it to him. It's mine, that is. Mine. I'm sorry, miss, but anything belonging to McGildit has to be taken in as evidence now. As evidence? They reopened the case, maybe? If the police demand something as evidence, my dear fellow, we have no choice but to capitulate. It's all yours, Inspector. Grr. And so we handed Mr. McGildit's disc over to Inspector Gregson, and were summarily turfed out of the shop and onto the street. To be continued. Okay, we're at the end of this part then. Well, I could continue for a little. Or should I stop here? Well, I keep yawning anyway, so let's just see maybe where the next chapter starts. And 15th of April, Baker Street. See, that's why I hate grown-ups. All they do is feed you a pack of lies and take stuff away from you. Oh, really, Mr. Strahd? Tell me, is that overcoat keeping you warm? What? Oh my, surely you were given that. Yeah, the D let me keep it, after I looked daggers at him for long enough. He went through the pockets and then said, "Go on then, have it," before telling me to scarper. Always pays off giving people a look like you ate them. Can't help feeling that it's going to get you into serious trouble one day. What I really wanted was that nice shiny disc, mind. The music box disc, but Mr. Windybank said it was practically worthless. I think I'm gonna go and have another bash, give him a long hard stare. I think not, Mr. Strad, we shan't enter Windybanks again today. Why not? That's not fair. It can't be helped, I'm afraid. The police are investigating the scene now and taking a statement from Mr. Windybank. But that disc's mine. I had the ticket for this coat and it wasn't this coat's pocket. And there should be something else and all. That's what that rotten cove said, ain't it? Yes, he did mention something about another article, didn't he? Well then, that's mine too, whatever it is. Now she's really pushing her luck. Mr. Strad, I think it's time to admit defeat. You've had your haul for the day. Yeah, and it's all your fault, Sholmes. So what are your plans now? Will you dine with us this evening? Huh? Iris would be delighted to cook, I'm sure, and I might entertain you with a modest violin recital. Is it recital or recital? Oh, I don't know. I never know with English. No, ta. Oh. Why would I come round your place, eh? Have you lost your head or something? Oh dear, she's gone. Heaven reviled on me quite unnecessarily, I might add. I can't help wondering if perhaps she might turn up anyway. Interesting. Once she's had a chance to calm down, I think there's a good chance she'll decide to come. Very well then, I'll inform Iris to set a place for our potential guest at the dinner table this evening. Oh, how nice. And one more thing, I should be glad of your company later too. Sorry? I believe I will have a rather splendid surprise to show you. Oh, how exciting! What is it? You shall have to wait and see, Mrs. Sato. Until later then. Let's move. Okay, I can't go back there. Ah, Susie and Runo, come in, come in. Good afternoon, Iris. Thank you so much for breakfast this morning. Oh, don't mention it. Goodness, look at the time already. Busy as always? I am. I'm preparing everything for dinner this evening. Already? You're obviously cooking something special, are you? Oh yes, after all, we have a special guest joining us. Guess who it is? Go on. Hehe, you'll never guess. Look at those little eyes of hers shining. Oh dear, it is awkward when you already know the answer, isn't it? It's Genie, isn't that exciting? Oh, what a surprise. Yes, that's wonderful news. Wow, Iris seems overjoyed at the idea. I can't wait to learn some pickpocketing tips from a real professional. Oh, yes, that does sound like fun. I'm not sure that's entirely appropriate, are you, Mr. Naruhodo? By the way, Iris, what's Mr. Sholmes up to? Early? Oh, it's been like that ever since he got back. Hello, Mr. Sholmes? I beg that you won't speak to me. Sorry? I don't know who you are, but kindly take your leave. As you can see, I'm not here. I don't know how to respond to that. I do apologize. When he gets like this, he's completely oblivious to everything. Yes, I see. Really, he behaves just like a child sometimes, Early does. Mr. Sholmes and Iris have something of a parent and child relationship, don't they? Yes, except that Iris is clearly the parent here. Come to think of it, I wonder where her real parents are. What's the matter, Runo? You have ever such a funny look on your face. Oh, no, it's nothing. I know what it is. Why does this girl live here with Mr. Sholmes, you're wondering, am I right? How? How did you... Hehe, oh Runo, I can read you like a book. This girl is dangerous. Don't worry, you can ask me anything, I won't mind. Yeah, well, I think I'll leave that for tomorrow, though. Okay. Okay, I'll stop here, then. We'll continue tomorrow. Judging from the length of this case, it probably will be so long that 2 more streams may not be enough. But I can't be sure in advance anyway. We'll see how things go. I think maybe tomorrow I should be done with the investigation part if all goes well, or close to be done and not yet quite at the trial part. So that could still last for a while. Anyway, I'll leave you guys to it then. Have a good rest of the night. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.